It happened today, in the break room. Everything felt tight. The walls, my chest, my patience. I hadn't slept more than a few hours all week. Deadlines piling up, bills overdue, car making that strange rattle again. The kind of pressure that presses behind your eyes and makes the world feel sharp. He was there, like always, leaning back in his chair with that smug smile, talking louder than necessary, like his voice was the only one that mattered. "Hey, you still living in that tiny place off 8th? Must be cozy," he said, grinning like it was a joke. Others chuckled. I didn't. Then came the usual remarks, about my clothes, my position, how I'd never make supervisor. He wasn't even subtle anymore. "Face it, man, you peaked in high school." Something cracked inside me. I don't even remember standing. I just remember my hand closing around the glass award on the counter, the one he won last month for performance. I remember how cold it was, how solid. The first blow came down before I thought, then another and another. When the shouting started, I froze. He slumped forward, eyes wide. The tile below him darkened too fast. Someone screamed. Someone else ran. I just stood there. I didn't run right away. I walked, calmly, strangely, out to the parking lot, started the car, and drove home. My heart didn't start pounding until I pulled into my driveway. Now I'm sitting on my couch, still in clean clothes, the apartment dark except for the pale glow of the streetlight through the blinds. I took a long shower, but I still feel marked. I keep thinking I see something red on my hands even though I scrubbed them raw. The house creaks more than usual tonight. Every pop in the walls or footstep above makes me jump. I know it's only a matter of time before someone knocks. Maybe they're already watching. Maybe they're giving me one last hour before everything ends. My phone buzzes again. I haven't answered all day. It might be the police, or my sister, or my manager. I don't want to know. I turned it off and dropped it into the bathroom sink. All I can hear now is the hum of the refrigerator and my own thoughts. What have I done? One moment of fury and everything I've worked for is gone. I know how this story ends. I've seen it on the news a dozen times. A man breaks, loses control, and pays for it for the rest of his life. Today I became that man. I keep going over it in my head, wondering if I could have stopped myself. But the truth is I didn't want to. Not in that moment. I felt powerful. I felt heard, and then came the cold realization. It was too late. A knock. Not gentle. 3 hard raps on the door. I don't move. Federal marshals open the door. They found me. The walls seem to close in. I rise slowly. My knees are weak. I feel like I'm underwater, moving through syrup. My breath catches in my throat. There's no use resisting. I walk toward the door with my hands raised. The lock bursts open before I reach it. Shouts, commands, flashlights and red beams dancing across the room. I drop to my knees, hands behind my head. It's over. As they pull me to my feet and guide me outside, I glance up at the neighbor's window. Someone is watching. A curtain shifts. A child's eyes meet mine, wide with confusion or fear. And just like that, the world I knew disappears behind me. The back of the cruiser was cold. Plastic bench, no cushion, no way to sit comfortably with hands cuffed behind me. The metal grate between me and the front seat made it feel like I was being displayed, part prisoner, part exhibit. The city looked different through the tinted glass. Streets I'd driven 100 times now felt unfamiliar, distant, like I didn't belong to this world anymore. The officer driving didn't speak. The one in the passenger seat glanced at me through the rearview mirror once. No expression, just a flicker of observation, like I was another file to be processed. We pulled into a concrete courtyard lit by dull, yellow security lights. The Sallyport door clanked shut behind us. I was led through a heavy metal door into the booking area, fluorescent lighting buzzing above, washing everything in a sickly white glow. First came the search. Shoes off, laces removed, belt gone, pockets emptied. I stood barefoot on a sticky floor while they cataloged every item like it mattered. They took my fingerprints next, a scanner now, not ink, though the sterile technology didn't make it feel any less humiliating. My photo was taken. The flash left a ghostly spot in my vision. The officer had to prompt me to look up. My eyes didn't want to meet the lens. Then came the questions. Name? Date of birth? Any mental health diagnoses? Are you currently suicidal? I answered quietly, automatically. My voice felt like it belonged to someone else. They gave me a mattress roll, thin as cardboard, and a blanket that smelled faintly of mildew. The jumpsuit was 2 sizes too big, stiff and coarse. My feet were still bare when they led me through a heavy gate into the intake room. The noise hit me first, a mix of shouting, laughter, and the constant low drone of voices that never seemed to stop. The air was damp, stale. The fluorescent lights flickered. A roach skittered across the hallway as we passed. My cell was on the second tier, up a narrow metal staircase. The officer didn't say anything as he unlocked the door and motioned for me to go in. I stepped inside. Concrete floor, steel toilet with no lid, a narrow bed frame bolted to the wall with a mat no thicker than my thumb. Graffiti covered the back wall. Names, curses, tally marks. A cracked mirror hung crooked over the sink, which dripped steadily. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the stained ceiling. The walls closed in quickly. That night, I didn't sleep. I turned on my side, then my back, then sat up. My head pounded. My mouth was dry, but the water from the sink tasted like rust and plastic. I gagged on the first sip and gave up. Time didn't move normally. Hours stretched. Thoughts looped. Regret bled into fear. Fear twisted into despair. What would people say? My sister, my neighbors, the kids I used to coach at the rec center. What would they think when they saw my face on the news? What if I'd just walked away? What if I'd kept my head down one more day? But I hadn't. And now I was here. The arraignment came the next morning. I was led in chains through a tunnel to the courthouse. The courtroom was cold and unfamiliar. My attorney, a tired-looking public defender, whispered that I'd be formally charged and the judge would determine bail. Second-degree murder, the judge said. I flinched. Hearing it out loud changed everything. Bail was denied. Back to the cell. A few days later came the preliminary hearing. The prosecutor spoke with clipped confidence. The detective recounted the crime. My attorney raised no objections. There was too much evidence, witnesses, security footage, blood. I stared at the table, hands folded, pretending to listen, but all I heard was the distant echo of what used to be my life collapsing behind me. The judge ruled the case would proceed to trial. I nodded, though it wasn't clear to me whether I was acknowledging him or just trying not to fall apart. As I was led back to the van, I caught my reflection in a window. Pale, sunken eyes, hair unkempt. It was the first time I didn't recognize myself. Time doesn't move here. It melts. I stopped counting the days after 2 weeks. Or maybe it was 3. The calendar on the wall of my mind peeled off and fell away. All that's left is the constant flicker of lights that never shut off, and the screech of metal doors sliding open and slamming closed. County jail is nothing like I imagined. You don't sleep, not really. You doze in fits, always with one eye open. The yelling never stops. Someone's always shouting. A fight, an argument, a breakdown. It echoes through the concrete like ghosts wailing down the halls. My cellmate is a man named Derek. He doesn't speak much, but his eyes never stop moving. He paces in small circles like an animal. One night he screamed into the vent for 2 hours straight. I pressed my face against the wall and prayed he'd stop. The others aren't any better. I've been called everything imaginable. Killer, coward, psycho. Some think I should be a hero for what I did. Others say they'd finish the job if the guards looked away long enough. One day someone spat in my food tray when I wasn't looking. Another time I found a piece of glass in my mattress. The guards don't care. They don't stop it. One of them even laughed when another inmate pretended to slit his throat while staring at me. My stomach is never settled. The food is pale, soggy, and smells faintly of chemicals. The water from the sink still tastes like copper. I stop drinking it unless I absolutely had to. I've lost weight. My clothes hang off me like I'm shrinking. I try not to use the toilet when Derek is awake. There's no privacy, no dignity. Just cold steel and the faint buzz of a fluorescent bulb above. At night, the shadows stretch longer. I hear whispers in the vents, breathing that's not mine. A dragging sound from the tier below that no one else seems to notice. The ceiling above creaks even though there's nothing above it but roof. Sometimes I see something moving in the corner of my eye, a blur, but when I turn, there's nothing. I think I'm starting to dream while I'm awake. Last night, I saw the man I hurt, standing in my cell, soaked in blood, head misshapen, but eyes alive. He didn't speak, just stared. I curled up in the corner and shut my eyes tight, hoping he'd disappear. When I looked again, he was gone, but the air still felt cold where he stood. I talk to myself now, quietly. I tell myself I'll make it out, that there's a purpose in all of this. But deep down, I know I'm lying. This place is changing me. Every sound scrapes across my nerves. Every hour chips away at something inside. I'm not sure what's left. Just a shell of a man, a ghost waiting to be forgotten. And the darkness, it's no longer outside me, it's inside. State prison was colder than jail, not in temperature, but in spirit. It was bigger, older, quieter in the wrong ways. At county, people shouted because they were afraid. Here, men had settled into their sentences. Here, time wasn't a countdown, it was a life. They stripped me of my county-issued clothes and gave me a new uniform, a dull, faded green like rotting moss. I was handed a mattress barely better than the one before, and shown to my cell in D block, a long, dim hallway with flickering lights and peeling paint that stank of sweat, mildew, and hopelessness. My cellmate was a lifer named Solomon, silent, sharp-eyed, carved from stone. He barely acknowledged me the first week. When he did speak, it was just to say, "Don't lie to yourself in here. It'll eat you faster than the food." The days were a repeat of the same ritual. Wake up, stand for count, eat something tasteless, walk the yard if weather allowed. The sky above us always looked too far away, like a memory we'd all forgotten how to reach. There were no mirrors in the cell, but I caught my reflection in the window one morning. Hollow-eyed, shoulders hunched, I'd become something thin and worn out, something scraped clean of softness. I barely looked human. Nights were worse. The dreams always came. Same scenes on repeat. The blood, the screams, the feel of glass in my hand. Sometimes I dreamed I was still in jail. Sometimes I dreamed I'd already died and this place was just the waiting room for something worse. The guilt pressed on me like a second skin. I wanted to forget what I had done, but every wall here whispered reminders. The man's face, the crack of glass, the silence after. Then one night, I had a different dream. I was walking through the corridors of the prison, but they stretched longer than they should. Endless. Each door I passed was ajar, creaking. From one I heard my mother crying. From another the sound of a child calling my name. A hallway full of moments that never happened, or maybe moments I'd lost. And then suddenly I was back at the office. Same break room, same light flickering above, same cheap smell of stale coffee and microwaved food. And there he was, laughing again, leaning back in that chair, saying the same thing he always said, "Must be nice still living in that little apartment." My hand was already gripping the glass award. I couldn't move. My mind screamed, "No, don't. You know what happens. You've seen it. You've lived it." But I was trapped, frozen, a passenger inside my own body. I raised my hand, and then time stopped. A breath caught in my throat, the weight of the glass above his head, the moment before the storm. Everything from jail to prison, the filth, the screams, the nights of terror, all of it surged back into me like a flood. This was the moment. I had seen it all before it happened, a warning, a chance, my only chance. But even as I begged myself to stop, to just walk away, to drop the glass and say nothing, I felt my arm descend. Fast, violent, final. The sound of impact cracked through the air. A scream followed, and this time it was real. Not a dream, not a premonition, not a vision. This time I had chosen. My knees weakened, my ears rang, blood splattered across the floor, just like before. I stood over him, shaking, tears in my eyes, the weight of 1,000 horrors settling over me. There would be no waking up now, no cell to return from, no second vision. The story had already been written, and I had chosen to follow it. I had been given a glimpse of my soul's undoing, and still I struck. The chance to change was behind me now, and everything I had seen was only the beginning.